When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish,
the podcast that laughed at its boyfriend's coffee and it turned into a brouhaha.
I thought you were going to say cock, and then that was not.
That would be a different thing.
Yeah, don't laugh at it.
A brew cock.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
We're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today,
we're going to talk about funerals.
Because this week hasn't been bad enough, we're going to talk about funerals.
I didn't realize. Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about the poll later.
It's Patreon's fault.
It's Patreon's fault. Yep, for sure.
Like, you gave them the ammo to shoot that gun.
I thought we agreed to blame it on Patreon.
Oh, it's Patreon's fault.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, Patreon. What the fuck?
Yeah. What the fuck, Patreon?
All right. Well, we are going to talk about funerals, which is great, I guess. But
yeah,
first,
I am excited to talk about funerals. It's a rich, meaty topic that has some gay angles that we'll explore together.
A girthy offering.
Thick, healthy, meaty episode forthcoming.
Oh, God. Well, let's see. So first, feedback and corrections. I did want to touch briefly on a number of people on a number of platforms wrote in to ask what is the R word, because I referred to it repeatedly in a recent episode. And I'm going to say it now in a way that is like, please don't ever say this word to refer to a human.
Mm-hmm.
There's retard, retarded, any variation of that word. To refer to a human being is just not okay. It is offensive to people with disabilities. It is not helpful. It doesn't make you sound smart or like you have any sort of leg to stand on. It really just sounds childish and spiteful. Please stop using that word. Don't do it.
Yeah, totally.
But now you know which word I meant. Those of you who didn't know which word I meant. Yeah, okay. Now the news?
Sure.
Shut your mouth hole. It's time for your ear holes. News.
News the first, Kyle.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the 4B movement. Have you been following this 4B movement?
No, I don't know what that is.
Well, it's been around for a while. It started in Korea, but has taken storm in American social media following the presumptive election of Donald J. Trump to a second term in the White House. The 4B movement stands for Biseksu, Bichulsen, Biyone, and Bihon, which are Korean for...
Okay, I was going to say, I think I'm having a stroke. Okay.
Yeah. No sex with men, no giving birth, no dating men, no marriage with men. So it is the until we get our way, until we get better rights, until we get the respect that we deserve, as women, we're not going to date men, marry men, have sex with men, or have their children.
Lesbians have been doing this for years. Right, they already know what's up.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And now this is a call to do the same for straight ladies. I just think it's really interesting, this idea that like we're going to withhold, like women are treated as objects by huge swaths of the human culture, including the United States. And this idea that women are going to withhold, like take their toys and go home, so to speak, is really, I think it's really interesting. You know, the ancient Greeks had Lysistrata is a Greek play that is basically, that's the plot. The women stop putting out because they want the war to stop. And anyway, it's just, if you hear anybody, if you see, you'll start to see it now. Like ever since I read it for doing the news today, I've been seeing it everywhere. But the 4B movement is that. We
haven't really talked about Trump getting elected. This is the first episode since it happened.
Yeah. Moving on. I don't know. The only thing I want to say about that is like, he won, and we're not going to storm the castle, and we're not going to like play into conspiracy theories. It's really unfortunate that he won. I think it sucks. And right now I see a lot of people saying a lot of crazy things about vote tallies and recounts, and I don't want to do that. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, I just think that everyone needs something a little bit different, like during the post-Trump election news. And some people, hopefully for a good swath of people, that's like organizing and activism. I think that's really important. Those that can do that. Some people may like fall into art, whether that's consuming or creating, which is great. And for some people, it's like just manage and stay alive. And if you're in that space, that's okay too. And find a community. If you want to join our Discord, that's one community you can have that's going to be a supportive place for you to hang out and be you. But finding a community can help. But I hope that everyone's doing whatever they personally need to do to brace themselves for 4 years and survive.
And if you want to hear people that hate that motherfucker talk about hating him, you can tune into us.
Exactly.
I don't know about Kyle, but I'm definitely going to hate that motherfucker.
Oh, for sure, Zeus.
And proudly until I disappear in a helicopter accident. We're going to start talking about the 4 T's, Kyle.
Okay, what's that?
You can give back by the 4 T's. You can give your time, you can give your talent, you can give your treasure, that's your money, or you can give your titties. So take your shirt off, write a check, volunteer, and make websites or something.
I support all of this. How does taking your shirt off help?
It helps me. And I'm trying
to get
shirtless pics make me feel better, Kyle. People need to send them in because I'm real down right now.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Now I understand now.
Okay. News the second.
Great.
More election stuff. Despite the Republicans doing very, very well in the election last week, there is a glimmer of hope that I think we need to find hope where we can. And that's marriage equality moved forward by significant margins in the election. Voters in California, Colorado, and Hawaii all approved ballot measures that changed their constitutions to remove language banning marriage equality. So in California, Proposition 3, the constitutional right to marriage, which amended the California Constitution to remove language stating that marriage exists only between men and women, passed, at least with 95% of the vote counted. Apparently, California takes for fucking ever to count their votes. That's why we don't know who's going to be running Congress or the House of Representatives. Anyway, but it's ahead 61% to 38% in its passing for sure. In Colorado, Measure J removed the language, quote, only a union of one man and one woman shall be valid or recognized as a marriage in this state from the Colorado Constitution. And that passed with over 63% of the vote. And then in Hawaii, question 1 asked voters, shall the state constitution be amended to repeal the legislator's authority to reserve marriage to opposite-sexed couples? And over 52% voted yes to the question, just in case the legislature there gets any ideas in the future. That's not one that they're going to be allowed to have. And now all of this is in anticipation of the Supreme Court eventually overthrowing Obergefell v. Hodges and then turning it back to the states whether to recognize same-sex marriages or not. But we made some significant strides, and I think it's important to note.
Yeah, that feels nice. It's only a few states. I don't know. I wish you had more states on that list. I don't know how many need it, but I wish all states had some kind of provision in their constitution that said anyone can get married.
Yeah, I mean, Washington State already had gay marriage before Obergefell. So there are states like that will, in the event that Obergefell gets overturned, Washington State will still have gay marriage just because it's been there since 20. When could we get Ref 41? My ex-husband and I did that. Anyway, so, but these states got caught up in that brouhaha of like, oh my God, change our constitutions to stop the evil coming.
Right.
Like this was during DOMA days, and the Obama administration couldn't even stop the rising tide of hate, and so they're undoing their past misdeeds, which is pretty great.
Yeah, optimism. That's great. I'm excited.
Also, bodily autonomy and pro-choice measures did remarkably well all across the country, which is good. And then news the last, I think this is great. So the National Academy's Eric and Wendy Schmidt Award for Excellence in Science Communications Award is in there already. I didn't have to say award again.
That's a mouthful.
Has been given to Filipino-Canadian drag queen Kine Santos.
Wow.
So she was on Drag Race Canada and is a TikTok sensation where she wears drag and teaches math. She does STEM education and is like Bill Nye the Science Guy meets, RuPaul. And she's absolutely adorable. And I just think it's really, really awesome when like in this world where drag is so shit on by the right that like this institution anyway is like, nah, this drag queen's fucking crushing it on teaching people shit that they actually need to know.
I would love to learn math from a drag queen. That might make it bearable. That might make it fun.
You can just find Kine Santos on well, we don't do TikTok because we're too old, but wherever else she is. Anyway, she has a degree in mathematics from the University of Waterloo and has a substantial following on social media platforms, and is mostly breaks down mathematical concepts from the quadratic formula to the fundamentals of calculus. And she's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the news.
That's the news. Speaking of people that are amazing, I want to thank the new Patreon members. We have new Patreon members, Mike.
Oh my God. It's almost like me like being sad. Made it happen. Let's try anger this week. Hey, fuckers, pay us. Oh.
Yeah, give us money. And support the show that you love so much.
And support the show.
I want to thank Nick. And then
I want to thank Nick for just going with Nick.
Just Nick. You know what? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then this is either C, S-I, or S-L. I'm not sure which. So thank you to C or Soul. And thank you to Nerdy Scruffmeister, he, him. Nerdy
Scruffmeister, he, him.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if that scruff is in like the app.
Oh, or scruff is in the beard. If you want ad-free episodes a day early, if you want to join our Patreon quarterly happy hours, if you want bonus episodes, bonus content, if you want to use Mike's Hole, you can do all of that by supporting us at patreon.com/gayish podcast.
Yeah, do it.
Do it. Do you want to talk about funerals?
Oh my God, Kyle. I think just since the election, why does funerals feel like up?
Because we've sunk as low as we can go, so anything feels like it's acceptable to talk about.
I guess it's the feel good topic of funerals. Let's keep it light and breezy, Kyle. This was the Patreon poll. So every month, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, the Gap Bridgers every month get to vote on 3 topics for a bonus episode, and Kyle and I take turns making nominations, and then we do whatever they vote on. And Kyle, in his infinite wisdom, decided that funerals should be on the list, and it won. So the beatings will continue.
Yeah, I beat you. And I did not think about the fact that people were voting on this after the election. Like, I didn't think about the timing, because another one that I submitted was Love, and that got no votes from the Gap Bridgers. Yeah. Not a vote. No one was in the loving mood after the election. I think that's why Funerals won, and then Spite came in second. So we're doing that for our bonus episode this month, which I'm excited to talk to you about Spite. There are some interesting things there, but I think no one was feeling the love, and lots of people were feeling the funerals or Spite after the election.
I think we shouldn't do that episode just for Spite.
That'd be funny. And then lots of people would quit their Patreon because they're not getting what we promised.
Well, okay.
We'll do it. We'll just do it real bad.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's going to be great.
I wonder, could we do an episode where Derek's wieners talk to Reynolds? Could we just
just put the dogs up to the mics and let them go for it?
Yeah.
Can you imagine Reynolds wearing little headphones?
Yes.
Oh, his floppy ears sticking out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. Back to funerals.
Back to funerals.
Okay, Kyle. What's a funeral?
Oh boy. Do we have to define it?
We do. Yeah.
I think don't get. Okay.
It's a little important.
Okay.
Because the funeral part, like most things, is slightly more complicated than you think it's going to be. The funeral part is the ceremony. And it's the ceremony connected to getting rid of a corpse or making sure that it's in its final place or whatever. And it's usually religious, but doesn't have to be. But it's not the burial part per se. Like you can bury a corpse without having a funeral. You can have a funeral without even having a corpse there because you lost it. It's a metaphysical thing.
I buried a corpse without having a funeral last weekend.
Did you?
I know what you did last summer. Don't come for me.
Okay. Spell come? No. Do come for me. So there is something about the human brain, though, that makes us like almost need to create some kind of closure when someone has died, right? Like you look at animals, and sometimes animals like elephants or other mammals especially will appear to behave strangely when a member of their pack or tribe or whatever has passed. It's pretty quick, and then they leave, right? Like it's a uniquely human thing to like mark the occasion with this sort of grand festival and like symbolic ritual around the whole process.
Yeah, funerals are for the living is what they say.
They do say that, but then why do we have to have dead people to have them?
Huh? Why don't we have funerals without dead people?
I don't know. I kind of like this, like reading through this stuff, like the idea of like throwing a funeral for somebody so everyone can talk about how much they love them, like while they're alive, to hear it and care. I kind of like that.
Like a pre-funeral.
A pre-funeral.
That's pretty morbid, though. Like if it didn't come across as, I like the concept, but it sounds pretty morbid. It's like, hey, we think you might die soon, so let's all tell you what you mean to us.
Yep. So funerals are apparently, we believe, older than modern humans. So there are caves that have Neanderthal skeletons in them, and they have flower pollen on them, like that was clearly placed there. And now some people say that it's because like rats or squirrels or whatever left the flowers, and that's why they have pollen on them. I don't buy that. I think that Neanderthals were like putting flowers and tools and stuff with their dead. So it predates modern humans. We've been doing it as long as humans have been a thing, which
squirrels have been doing it. We don't know.
Well, that's true. My neighbors have a squirrel condo. Did I show you the squirrel condo, Kyle?
No.
There's a squirrel condo next door. It's like a Barbie dream house that they've converted into this like house for squirrels. It's on a pole under a tree, and like it's either that or it's supposed to be for birds, but it seems like it's made for squirrels because I don't know why. I've made it up in my head that it's squirrels.
Yeah. Are you going to become like a crazy squirrel person? Like start to name them and
well, I live next door to some is all I'm saying. And so like, I think the chances that I'll become one are pretty high now. Great.
I'm excited to hear all the escapades of the squirrels.
It's communicable. Okay. So the Wikipedia article on funerals makes this point that funeral customs have 5 anchors to them. There's significant symbols, gathered community, so everybody gets together, ritual action, so there's some thing that you do together, cultural heritage, so it is culture specific, and then transition of the dead body, so putting it near where it's going to finally rest when it's done. So I was looking through all of these different things that people do with their dead bodies, and I was trying to come up with like my guess for what I believe to be the gayest one.
What's the gayest thing to do with a dead body, Mike?
Well, I have an answer for that.
Okay.
I'm hoping that you will agree with me. So first, I really think that the idea of like the Vikings would put the body onto a boat with a bunch of like gifts and jewels and their fancy clothes, and then push them out into the water and then shoot a lit arrow at it so that it would explode. But something about the flamboyance of the whole thing.
It's like a lot of theatrics.
Yeah, and that just makes it seem really gay.
Okay.
Right?
And plus we know like anything out at sea, like sailors or pirates are already pretty gay. So sending someone out to sea is like sending them out to gayness.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Putting the anus in gayness. So the problem is apparently that whole thing's a fucking lie.
Oh, really?
That's not how Vikings rolled. Like some did, but it's just not. There's not enough historical evidence to support that as being like a normal thing that happened. Apparently, there's like some lines in a few poems that make reference to that being a thing, but like most scholars seem to be in agreement that that's just not how the Vikings rolled. And now I'm sad, but I hope everybody else is sad too, having learned.
Is our goal from this episode to make everyone a little sad? Is that
Yes.
okay? I mean,
Isn't
we're
that
in
every
the mood.
episode?
We do find a way to bring most things down to a sad place, but this one will be easy for us. We needed a layup.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. So I will wrap my little segment up here by saying after careful analysis, I have determined that the gayest funeral thing is called Famidahana. Famidahana is a funerary tradition of the Malagasy people in Madagascar. And they have a ceremony called Turning of the Bones, where they dig up their old dead bodies, wrap them up in new silk clothing, and then dance with them.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay. Do I have to be on board because I have to respect other traditions? I don't want to dig up some old bones and pretend like everything's fine and dance with it.
Well, they sure do. It just it combines flamboyance with fashion, with like choreography. Like it is the gayest funeral tradition in my opinion. So
I don't love it.
The idea is that the spirits of the dead finally join the world of the ancestors after the body's complete decomposition and appropriate ceremonies, and that takes many years. So it's not just like a one and done, you have a funeral and it's over. You have to have like funerals over time to really help them get that good funeral juice going or something, whatever. I don't know. So once every 5 to 7 years, extended families get together and to continue helping them along, they give them a new set of threads and dance around with them. Now, white people ruin everything. We talk about that all the time. And apparently the Catholic Church for a long time said that they didn't want this to happen, that they thought that it was a religious thing, that it conflicted with the teachings of the church, blah, blah, blah.
Because so whatever Christians want wins out over everything else.
Right, exactly. But apparently the Catholic Church now is on board. Somebody convinced them that it's purely cultural rather than religious. So they're like, okay, then go for it. There is a possibility that that's how everyone got pneumonic plague one time. So that's when the Malagasy government has sort of cracked down on it. But they cracked down on it by saying you just can't dig up the people who died of plague.
Okay.
if they died of not plague, then go for it.
Okay.
But yeah, in my opinion, Famidahana is the gayest funeral tradition. Again, it combines fashion with choreography with a good story. The dramatics of it, I love it.
What do you want to have happen when you die? Do you want a funeral? What do you want?
I'm getting old and I am bad on this. I'm hard on this body. I'm living rough, but take everything that's even remotely possibly useful for someone else and transplant it into them, burn everything that is left. And I do want a little headstone so that people can come visit me, but like just put a little tiny urn in a place with a plaque that says, "Here he is. Everybody enjoy."
You can enjoy the leavings of Michael Johnson.
And there's a couple of cemeteries in Zilla and Sunnyside that have a lot of my family in them that I wouldn't mind being buried with them. But yeah, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe in religion at all. So whatever people can use of my body, whether that's donating to people or donating to science, or if they need cadavers for medical students, I don't know, whatever they want to do with my body, feel free, go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Use my body.
Use my body. It's like in life. I feel best when you just use my body however you want. I'll die like
God.
I lived.
They'll all be wearing scrubs because they're medical students.
And they'll all look like everyone on Grey's Anatomy, so they'll all be hot people just cutting up my body. Ooh, it's going to be so sexy.
Yeah, get it.
Okay. Should I tell you about some Gayda?
You said you had some Gayda. Let's go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is all
100% of gay people die.
Except one. Sir Elton John will never die.
Oh God. Oh, I have a story about him.
Oh, okay. That fits with the topic?
Yep, sure do.
Okay. Interesting. Oh, is it about Princess Diana?
No, Kyle, do your segment.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. No, let's play a game where I guess what your segment is. That'll be fun. Okay. So I didn't find any specific study. So just anytime I came across some data, there was, I pulled it out. There's research published by Stonewall and the Cooperative Funeral Care, and it was carried out by YouGov, where they surveyed 522 people. And here's some little tidbits that I was able to find online. So first, 48% of LGB people, again, sorry, trans people, you're left out from many studies in this one, is no different.
Everything.
And soon, yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh,
so
no.
Sorry. We love you, trans people.
We love you. Oh, yeah. It's Trans Awareness Week this week.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, we did funerals?
We didn't coordinate the dates.
No.
Again, no. Patreon's fault. We need to remind ourselves it's Patreon's fault we're doing this.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, 48% of LGBT people fear discrimination when dealing with bereavement. I am surprised that is not more. I would think a majority of LGBT people would fear discrimination in most places, honestly, but 48% fear it during bereavement.
Maybe it's just that they understand that they'll be dead and it won't matter.
Maybe. Well, I took this as when dealing with someone else dying.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Almost a quarter are worried about being treated poorly by a funeral director when arranging a funeral.
Oh, this leads to you being correct, that it's not about their own death, but someone else's.
Yeah, these seem to be. Yeah, most of these seem to be about you dealing with someone else's death or funeral.
Yeah. Okay.
1 in 5 worried about discrimination from family members. So again, I would expect that to be higher. It's almost kind of nice that only 20% are worried about discrimination from family members. I would think way more would be. So 80% are not worried about discrimination from family members. That's bigger acceptance than I thought we'd have.
Yeah.
10% say they have experienced discrimination at a funeral or when arranging one. I again would have thought that would be more. The website I read this said shockingly 10% of experienced discrimination, which is this is not none of this is shocking to me. I don't think you should call any of this shocking that people worry about or experience discrimination when dealing with funerals or funeral homes, or bereavement. And this is one about themselves. 55% of LGBT people, of LGB people, 55% of LGB people over the age of 45 have no financial provisions for their funeral.
Oh, no financial provisions. Oh, like they didn't save up or anything.
Yeah. What happens with your funeral when you don't have money saved up for it? Does the state just chuck you in a hole and move on with life, or what happens?
This is a great question, Kyle. I have no idea.
Huh. Neither. I guess maybe your family has to pay some shit.
I don't know. We should ask that. We should know. That's the thing we should know, don't you think?
I guess so, because I don't know if I'm going to have money saved up for my funeral, and I'm not going to have kids. So who's going to pay for this? I won't care. I'll be fucking dead. So
yeah, I'm just going to leave behind this sexy, sexy corpse and let everybody else deal with it.
Yeah. It's your problem now.
It's your problem now. Yeah, if no one is able or willing to cover the costs, the body may be turned over to the county or state, which will then handle the disposition, usually through cremation or burial in a mass grave or indigent cemetery. Yeah. Wild.
Yeah. Well, someone will take care of it. And then I had just a tidbit of Gayda about the kind of funeral industry. So this is from an article by Elise Warland, and I got this from the Business Insider in 2024. Apparently, there's going to be a huge demand for funeral directors in the next 10 years because a lot of them are retiring.
Wow.
So good work, AE. You're getting in at the right time. When Elise first got into the profession, she said it was male dominated, but now as of in 2020, around 75% of students enrolling in mortuary programs were women. So women are starting to flock to the funeral and mortuary business, which go women. We love that you're there.
Somebody's got to do it, I guess.
Somebody's got to do it. It takes patience and empathy and working with community. It takes qualities that women should excel at. And then last little data, according to Zippia, a website whom I don't know how much to trust, but is the only thing that could find this data on, 9% of funeral directors or embalmers are LGBT.
That seems way low to me.
Yeah? You think more would be gay?
I for some reason, I think a funeral director is being a thing that like that gays would be into.
Yeah? Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, there's the makeup and fashion aspects of it.
Yeah, totally. You and with a client that has no feedback for you.
Right.
Imagine doing someone's makeup and they had to be okay with it.
And then
that's not true. The family might complain.
You have to have
about
a clipboard to get through it, right? Like for all there's flowers and there's music and there's photos and there's like it's like there's a lot of details that you really want an uptight queen to take care of.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but 9% seems about on par with the LGBT population as a whole, depending on what kind of measurements you use. So it seems about average. So it doesn't seem particularly gay or straight, just kind of is about average.
Yeah.
I picture as gay people as like more willing to like be open to the macabre and the creepy and like kind of traditionally I don't know. Yeah, traditionally challenging fields.
Absolutely. And I wonder how much of that is just because we're pretty much over religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, not totally, right? But like the LGBT people are less likely to be religious. We know that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, you brought up a couple of things about the funeral industry, and I think that's as good of a segue as we're going to get into talking about the problems that people who died of HIV/AIDS had in securing bereavement care, getting funerals arranged.
Yeah.
So in 1980 until about 1987 or so, that was sort of the really, really, really bad part, right? And because this thing was happening, gay men were dying, and we didn't quite have it figured out how it was transmitted, how we could prevent it. We didn't understand the disease or really how it progressed that well, and that really turned into that intersected with funerals for obvious reasons. And what was different about these funerals was, first, it was a lot of folks. Like, you will hear stories from the time of people saying, like, I was losing a friend or two a week,
right,
out of my social circle, and it was just absolutely devastating. And but then also the funeral industry. And because they were often young people in their 20s and 30s, they didn't necessarily have the financial resources that to afford a funeral, and their friends and family were either in the same boat as them financially, or many had been abandoned by their families, especially in light of their diagnosis.
Yeah, which is horrifying that, like, I mean, things are getting better in terms of LGBT acceptance, but like at the time, it'd be very easy for your family to just completely disown you because of this. And then you have to depend on your friends. And if your friends are all people in their 20s as well, like, no one's going to have spare money for a funeral in their 20s.
Yeah. Yep. Well, many funeral directors at the time just flat out refused. They said, no, my business will not deal with a corpse of a person who died from AIDS.
Were they worried about transmission, or is it because it was a gay person, or do you know why?
Yeah, absolutely. So this article from Medium says, quotes the director of the Celentano Funeral Home in New Haven, Bill Celentano, said, quote, "The virus is still virulent. We have to use special kits of disposable gear to work on AIDS victims, and we have to charge more. We're taking a risk." So a lot of funeral directors would either not handle AIDS cases at all, or they would charge more for funerals for AIDS victims, and that was often double.
Wow, double.
Yeah. Now, they would say that they needed to do that to buy disposable protective gear for the embalming, goggles, mask, gloves, gown. But it's hard to justify some of the costs that materialized.
Yeah.
Now, there were no state regulations at the time that prohibited funeral homes from refusing to handle AIDS cases or to limit the amount that they could charge towards a grieving family or individual in order to do so. Quote, "According to AIDS Project officials and funeral directors, several funeral homes across the state flatly refused to handle funeral services for AIDS patients. And immediately there were lawsuits that were put in place that made complaints against mortuaries' professionality." So Gene Peck, who wrote the book Families of AIDS Victims, said, quote, "A Portsmouth funeral home that charged $2,700 extra for embalming nine AIDS victims has agreed to reimburse their families for the charges." So after these lawsuits, like people sort of had their like human moment, like their empathetic moment, and realized that this was bullshit and started pushing back. And it eventually led to some like funeral homes like this one paying back that overcharge to the families. And of course, they always would say, you know, we didn't think that we were doing anything wrong. It wasn't illegal, and we were scared too.
Which I can see that. I can unfortunately understand the idea, like if we don't know what's causing AIDS, I could see the fear that you're taking on additional risk. I can unfortunately see their side in this.
Yeah. I agree. And that's just having lived through it. I remember how absolutely terrifying it was, how scary it was, because we didn't understand it. And I think I've told this story before of like, I remember being an elementary school kid riding the bus, talking with my friends casually about like, if we saw somebody bleeding on the side of the road, would we help them? And because the culture was such that like, oh, like bodily fluids, you're going to get AIDS. Anyway, there have been protections that have been put in place in some places faster than others to specifically regulate how funeral homes are charged with dealing with people who have died of HIV/AIDS, and protections for the estate and their friends and family. So that has gotten better, especially as we've understood the virus more and how it's transmitted, and the treatment has gotten better. The stigma has started to really wear off, especially since PrEP. But at that time, funerals were rough, man.
Whew, yeah, that's heavy.
What do you got?
On this topic, there's a famous picture of, it's David. I didn't practice this ahead of time. Wojnarowicz in 1988, wearing a coat with the ACT UP logo, the pink triangle on it, that says, "If I die of AIDS, forget burial. Just drop my body on the steps of the FDA."
Wow. Woo.
Yeah. It just, people were frustrated at inaction and, lack of accountability of people actually like looking into this, helping, doing anything for the community. So I'm going to do an Ask Reddit, but it's from Quora. So an Ask Quora.
Ask Quora.
And the question is, would you bring your gay partner to your father's funeral if you knew all the people there had traditional values?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
First of all, would you your family seems very supportive, but would you have any concerns in like going to a funeral in your family, bringing your partner?
This isn't the question that you asked.
Okay.
But when my uncle died, I did not bring my husband. And that was in part because my very conservative Catholic grandparents were going to be there. I wasn't out to them. And I'm okay now, but I felt a great deal of guilt about that for a very long time. But then also, my aunt asked me if I would speak at the funeral. And there was, I don't remember, it's been a long time ago now, it was 15 years ago. But I remember sort of wrestling with the idea of, first, they wouldn't let me participate in like communion or like parts of the mass because I wasn't Catholic. But then there were also lots of people in that room that I was out to, and lots of them that I wasn't, and wondering if my presence was going to be controversial at all at a time when I shouldn't have been the focus whatsoever. I mean, he was my uncle, so I was mourning and grieving myself, but I didn't want to distract from that whole thing by being the faggot in the pulpit reading reading a thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that I did not bring my ex-husband to my uncle's funeral, and but I had lots of feelings myself.
And do you think that was the right decision at the time?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I mean, I did bring my ex-husband to the funerals of my grandparents, and I didn't really think about it at all. I just did it.
Did you get any kind of comments or any pushback on that?
No. But like you said, my family's pretty chill about it. Like everybody except my grandparents, who I don't know that they weren't. They might have been okay with it. I just never came out to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. How about you? Would you bring your boyfriend to a funeral?
I think if it's my parents, then yes, because like what matters is my relationship with my parents, and my parents are okay with me being gay. We went through a lot to get to this place, but they're okay with it. So if other people aren't, that's on them. I have not come out. I'm not close with my extended family, so I haven't like come out to aunts, uncles. I'm out to at least one cousin because he's gay too. So, but like mostly I didn't ever do the coming out to my extended family just because we're not close. Like it would be weird for me to reach out to them regardless, much less to be like, hey, just so you know, this affects you not at all, but I'm gay. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So it's weird. I haven't had this conversation with a lot of them, but yeah, if it's my immediate family, then I would bring a partner. I have to get a partner first to worry about this happening. So next step, get a boyfriend I better get a boyfriend before someone dies, Mike.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best not to die, Kyle.
Okay. Thank you. I would really appreciate, at least not until I have a boyfriend.
If I die, you can bring him to my funeral. I'm okay with it.
Oh, thanks. What if I turn poly? Is there a limit to number of boyfriends I can bring?
Oh, 4.
4 max. Okay. I will not get in a relationship with more than 4 people.
Okay, great.
So, okay. Some of the comments that people left, he was my father. I get to decide who is and is not welcome at his funeral. Anyone who is uncomfortable with my choice is welcome to leave. And that's how I feel about it too. Like it's my relationship with my parent, especially a parent is like, this is my relationship that you are not involved in. So you don't get to have a say on how I grieve or what I do during my parents' funeral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talked about the traditional values part. Like we know what they meant when they say traditional values, but someone said traditional values, like hating other people for their life choices. That's not traditional. And those are not values. Portraying that as such is insulting and ridiculous. If you had a good relationship with your dad and he accepted your partner, I'd definitely bring him if he was wanting to go. A lot of people said that same thing. Like someone else said, in my country, traditional values means everyone who comes to a funeral is made to feel welcome, treated respectfully, allowed to speak if they so wish. So Yeah, as someone else just said, straight up traditional values. Oh, so they'd be bigots.
Yeah,
Doesn't
right.
it suck that there are some like healthy traditional values, but doesn't it suck that traditional values just means like kind of racist and homophobic?
Well, yes, absolutely. I wanted to. This is not a defense. I think that a lot of it is that traditional values means established values, and the issue with conservative people is that they are conservative. They want things to stay the same. So when you start talking about things that need to change in society, like acceptance of people who aren't like you in some way, increasing the umbrella of how many differences someone can have and you still consider them a human fucking being, that requires change. And they hate change. They constitutionally dislike change. When they talk about make America great again, what they mean is back when things were different less.
Yeah.
And anyway, so yeah, it's not a defense, but I think that's why when somebody says traditional values, they just mean old and crusty and white cis Christian male.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Someone else said, if the rest of my bio family need to behave like entitled shitweasels when my mother dies, dad died long ago, then I'd simply accept that they care more about giving the public appearance of being good Christians than they do about supporting grieving family or anything else. This would be utterly unsurprising. I wouldn't go if they made it clear to me Rocky was unwelcome. I wouldn't be particularly surprised if any of them did this. I don't have any real relationship with any of them now. Doing this would be par for the course. I moved on from trying to have a comprehensible relationship with my mother many, many years ago. When she dies, if the rest of them choose to exclude me from her funeral, I'll survive. Yeah. And it's kind of sad, but this is the story for some gay people, especially people of an older generation that are estranged from their families because of their family's choice to be assholes, not because of anything that they did. And so they have to make these decisions or have the risk of not being invited to their mother's funeral because of them being gay or having a partner. And so like that story is, could be a common one.
Well, in the Patreon segment, you're going to give tips for doing a funeral the right way.
Yeah, I'm going to give tips on planning an LGBT funeral.
Don't invite your bigoted aunt.
That's if not number 11.
Mm-hmm.
Don't invite your bigoted aunt. Let's see, what else? Someone said, I took my gay self to my dad's funeral. He didn't seem to care. What everyone else thinks, I don't care. Which I like that. And then lastly, someone said, if my father was the kind of person who kept company exclusively with bigots, I wouldn't even come to the funeral, much less drag my partner along. And that's rough for me because my parents probably have some Republican bigoted friends. Like I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know exactly. I'm not close enough with them to know exactly how their friends feel about gay people. Hopefully, since they know that my dad has a gay son, they've learned to shut the fuck up about it if they do. But I don't know exactly how they all felt. But like, if my parents do keep bigoted friends around, that's I would imagine a possibility and something that if I went to one of their funerals would have to deal with, just ignoring that fact and saying what I want to say when I speak and being there on my own terms, which that seems like not caring what other people think about me is not one of my strong suits.
Yeah.
What else you got, Mike?
Well, you have me thinking, so I wanted to talk about some famous funerals.
Okay.
And their impact on gay culture. And sometimes the impact is just that they died. But there was going to be a joke that I was going to weave in there about Elton John being the gay specter of death. And I suppose I can still make that joke, but
not anymore because you just ruined it.
Well, you talked about David Wojnarowicz.
Yes.
And who is often given credit for staging political funerals in the 90s. And
That's interesting that we both pulled his name to talk about during this.
Well, yeah, and it's because this sort of leads to Ryan White. Do you remember Ryan White?
No.
So Ryan White was from Indiana and was 13 years old when he contracted HIV/AIDS through contaminated blood. So, then that set off a whole very public national spectacle around, was it okay for his school to say that he couldn't attend school? He's going to die. We have no cure. It was in 1985, when his school board said that he could no longer come to class.
Wow.
And but the shit was really bad then. And so it started this national conversation. And because it takes a long time for HIV to turn into AIDS, to turn into an infection that ultimately leads to the person dying, we knew that that's where this kid's life was headed. And he finally died on April 8th, 1990. Now, there was this huge fight in Congress, and people were, using the specter of HIV/AIDS to condemn gay people, to condemn drug users. Basically, it was, that's when a lot of the rhetoric around AIDS, like being sent from God, came from, was like people viewing it as a good thing because it was getting rid of these parts of society that we didn't want. So for a innocent 13-year-old kid who's not gay, not a drug user, to just contract it, and he was a white kid, which of course that meant that we had to pay attention, because tragic things that happen to people of color don't get any kind of attention in this country, especially in the 1990s. Anyway, his funeral was a gigantic fucking deal. First Lady Barbara Bush sat behind the white family at the funeral. Michael Jackson, one of the most famous people in the world at the time, sat next to Ryan's mom at the funeral. The pallbearers included Los Angeles Raiders defensive end Howie Long, talk show host Phil Donahue, and singer Elton John. Elton John was at Ryan White's funeral. Now, a lot of the good things about our sort of conversation about HIV/AIDS, I think, stem from that whole thing. Millions and millions of people watched the funeral on TV. CNN carried the whole thing, and a bunch of legislation called the Ryan White fill in the blank happened at both the state and federal levels.
Is it because it happened to someone that they could, they can't relate to gay people, but when it happens to a 13-year-old white boy, then they can relate to it a little bit better, and that results in more change than the gay people dying?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This goes to that whole thing, right? Like, how different can someone be from you and you still consider them a human fucking being?
Yeah.
And this kid is them, right?
Yeah.
Except for the ill part, so some other funerals though that I wanted to talk about include, well, let's take the Elton John thread real quick.
Sure.
Not only was he at Ryan White's funeral, he was at Michael Jackson's funeral. Yeah, exactly. They were friends, which, have we canceled him? Is he uncanceled because he died? I'm never sure what the right thing is.
I don't know where we're at. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, and then he also famously sang at Princess Diana's funeral. The song Candle in the Wind, which had originally been written for Marilyn Monroe, he reworked the lyrics so that they applied to Princess Diana and sang at the funeral. So of the three most watched funerals of all time, Princess Diana, Michael Jackson, and Mahatma Gandhi, Elton John was at 2 out of the 3 of them. And Ryan White's funeral is up there in the top 10. Basically, Elton John, like, if you start becoming friends with Elton John, you might become famous, and then you might become famous for your funeral, and he'll be there.
Or we pull Elton John in for any death that's kind of gay or related to gay things.
Oh, and gays too.
Yeah.
Gays love Princess Di. Yay.
Yeah. Elton John, come on.
Oh my goodness. Some other funerals that I wanted to talk about. Freddie Mercury.
Oh.
So Freddie Mercury, it's super interesting because there was a funeral. He was, depending on who you ask, pan or gay, and
I thought
or bi.
bi. Yeah.
Or bi, pan bi. I don't know, Kyle. Freddie Mercury died of AIDS in 1991, an AIDS-related complication in 1991. And there was a funeral. It was a small funeral that Elton John attended. Not kidding. There was less than 40 people there, including Elton John.
Wow.
His bandmates from Queen, his partner, Jim Hutton, and his girlfriend, Mary. Now, Mary Austin, they probably not sure, had a sexual relationship, and she was often his beard, like public facing, but also it like their relationship was just super, super interesting because he was for sure with Jim Hutton, and like that was his sexual and romantic love of his life. But Freddie Mercury, again, there was a funeral, but after the funeral, Mary took his ashes and kept the urn in his old bedroom because they all lived together. And she never went into that. They all lived
together?
Yeah.
All three of them?
Apparently.
Wow. That's quite the interesting setup there.
Or he had a bedroom at her house.
Oh.
Not sure how that all works out. So apparently she never went into that room because it would remind her of him dying there, which he was sick for a lot of his convalescence there. But after 2 years, she finally and secretly took the urn and brought him to his final resting place. And it is apparently a secret. She's the only person that knows where he is buried. He asked her to keep his final resting place a secret. He was worried that something would happen to his grave after he had passed if they didn't do it this way. Quote, he didn't want anyone trying to dig him up, as had happened with some famous people. Fans can be deeply obsessive. He wanted it to remain a secret, and it will remain so.
Oh, I didn't know fans have dug up famous people. I mean, it makes sense now that you say it, but I didn't know that was a fear that famous people had to have.
Right.
They're dead and can't even be left alone.
Yep. See, that's why I plan on holding on to all of your bones, Kyle.
You can have them.
I don't want some other fan to have them. But apparently,
the only time you'll take one of my bones.
She refused to tell his parents where she buried him.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a tiny ass funeral, and Elton John was at that one.
Yeah.
Pretty wild. Now, last I wanted to talk about Harvey Milk, and that is not a funeral that Elton John was at. As far as I know, was Elton John at his funeral? It's hard to find information about Harvey Milk's funeral because everybody focuses on the fact that he was assassinated.
Yeah.
And then they talk about the the aftermath, the riots, and the impact on gay rights, and then because Dan White assassinated him and used the Twinkie defense, and the Twinkie defense became famous. Like we don't have a ton of information about his funeral, but he knew that he was going to die and recorded a message. And it was, I don't know if it was played at the funeral, but it was released then and was played. If it wasn't played at the funeral, it's not hard to imagine that it was. But it said, quote, "This is Harvey Milk speaking on Friday, the 18th of November, 1978. This tape is to be played only in the event of my death by assassination. I fully realize that a person who stands for what I stand for, an activist, a gay activist, becomes the target or potential target for a person who is insecure, terrified, afraid, or very disturbed. Knowing that I could be assassinated at any moment, at any time, I feel it's important that some people know my thoughts and why I did what I did. Almost everything that was done with an eye on the gay movement. I cannot prevent some people from feeling angry and frustrated and mad in response to my death, but I hope they will take the frustration and madness, and instead of demonstrating or anything of that type, I would hope that they would take the power, and I would hope that 5, 10, 100, 1,000 would rise. I would like to see every gay lawyer, every gay architect come out, stand up, and let the world know. That would do more to end prejudice overnight than anybody could imagine. I urge them to do that, urge them to come out. Only that way will we start to achieve our rights. All I ask is for the movement to continue, and if a bullet should enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet door. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I want to believe that that was played at his funeral, and then there were I don't know, rainbows and roses or glitter.
Yeah, fucking bunnies jumped out. And,
unicorns and glitter.
Yeah.
But it's wild.
That's rough, knowing that you might be assassinated and having to kind of plan for that.
Well, and I think like you'd probably, my first thought would be like, oh man, you paranoid. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of thing that like you seem paranoid until it happens. And then you're like, oh fuck, he did try to tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. He knew. Oh man.
Yeah. Matthew Shepard's funeral was important and big. Mm-hmm. I guess that's all I want to talk about, Kyle. Lots of funerals.
I think that the funerals, because we had to have there were so many deaths and so many funerals during HIV/AIDS, that's part of the reason for our snarky humor and our like, I think that's explains part of why we have dark humor and we're cynical and sarcastic. I think that explains some of those kind of gay traits that you might find. I think you have to find a way to cope through all that. And I, was not around then, so I can't imagine how you would cope during that, but I can imagine humor, and especially dark humor, would be one of the ways that you would do that. So I think that explains parts of our community, like drag queens, parts of their act, and that we're allowed to get away with a little bit more, and that we do get away with a little bit more of that humor in our community. I think that's part of the explanation for it.
That's interesting. I like that. Like, I mean, I don't like, obviously all of that sucks, but like as an explanation, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Did you have more?
No, just join us for the Patreon for the 10 tips on planning an LGBT funeral.
Yeah, we'll cover that in Patreon. And maybe I'll talk about the gay funeral homes there also. There are a couple of gay-owned funeral homes, and some of them are more overt than others in how they own their gayness in their advertising and whatnot. So,
can you give me a tidbit of like one ad or one gay thing that a funeral home does?
Sure. There's one, oh God, it's dark. Talk about dark humor. There's one called, it's the Over the Rainbow Funeral Company. In Sydney, Australia.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it on Patreon. So join us over there.
All right. Sounds good. You want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back from the dead.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest. But first,
we have a big announcement.
We have a big announcement. Hey, everybody, shut up.
Listen up. Put down your vacuum cleaner. Pull over to the side of the road. Stop doing your work. Stop making love. Whatever you're doing, stop it.
Yeah, stop it.
Mike and I wrote a book.
We wrote a book. We've been hinting. I think we full on said we were.
Yeah, I think we've said it. But now we are announcing more of the details.
It's available for pre-order, Kyle.
Yeah, you can pre-order it right now. Pre-orders, I don't know if you've heard, but in the book world, pre-orders start to give hints to publishers as to how popular the book's going to be, and that really helps if it looks like people care about our book and are ordering it. So if you're thinking about buying it, it's now is a helpful time to do that. And you can go to gayishpodcast.com/book and you'll see a little bit more about the book, and you can see where to pre-order it.
Yeah, there are lots of options for pre-order. We are maybe trying to get everybody to do it from Amazon, not because we love Amazon, but because it's nice to have all of your eggs in one basket, because that helps numbers and whatnot. Christmas is right around the corner, everybody. Buy one for you, buy one for your mom, buy one for Uncle Fred. It's a great stocking stuffer, although I don't actually know how big the book is because we don't have them in our hands yet either. But just trust us, it's going to be great.
Yeah. The book is actually coming out January 21st. So you'll have to like print out a little thing that says, yes, I bought you this book and it's coming soon for Christmas.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them about the quiz part of it?
Oh, yeah. So the concept for the book, just so everybody knows, there's a 17-question quiz. It's multiple choice. And we tell you, you get gay points depending on your answers. So at the very end, you can find out how gay you are. But then every question is a chapter where we sort of explain how we arrived at the way that we scored it.
Yeah, every chapter is a different gay stereotype, and we dissect it using research, using personal stories. We get very personal in the book if you want to learn more about Mike and I, if you haven't learned enough about us. We use research studies. So we do all that to break down one stereotype per chapter.
Yeah. We would love your support.
Yeah. Gayishpodcast.com/book.
Do it.
Yeah.
Well, as Kyle said, our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We are on socials at Gayish Podcast.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails, especially if it's your Gayest Straightest. It's 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rate supply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. I'm going to do a local gay bar review.
Ooh.
Great. Everybody, my nose started bleeding during the Patreon segment, so I'm just like barely keeping it together here.
Mike's alive for now.
I'm going to talk to you about Ollie's downtown in Indianapolis, Indiana. I got to tell you what, Kyle. Indy has a gay scene that exceeds expectations on all fronts, in my opinion.
Oh, great.
Like,
Yeah,
I
did not have high hopes for Indianapolis.
I'm not going to move there, but I like it. Anyway, Ollie's downtown has a really cute diner vibe. I went for lunch, so it was maybe not the best place to like do a full-on local gay bar review from it, but whatever. The outside was closed, but looks like there's a big fun outside area to it. Would have to come back to test that. There was a thing on the wall that said "Our Lord and Savior Betty White," and it had really cool double spinning fan. It was wild. And then the bartender was just sassy, and she had the right kind of attitude. She knew exactly how gay she was being, and the food was quite good. I give it 3.5 dildos.
Nice. Way to go.
Yeah. Is it Gayest Straightest time?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, do it.
My gayest is being stood up for a date.
Oh, Kyle.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It happens. I had
He was straight anyway, though, right?
He said in his profile he was straight and said that it was a story. I asked him about it, and it said, it was just like, okay, but like, do you date dudes? And he was like, yeah, I'll tell you about it in person. So I had low expectations for this date, but was still going to, I'm 38 and single, so I don't have the right to be very picky right now.
Okay, Kyle. Okay. Calm down.
So I'll go on a date with anyone as long as you're into me. Hit me up, boys. But then he apologized profusely, and so I unmatched with him. My straightest is I saw on my Instagram, for some reason, I saw content about the Dodgers winning the World Series. I don't know what about my Instagram algorithm decided that's what I wanted to see. Although apparently I was like almost bragging to someone that I knew about the fact that they won. And he was like, yeah, that happened like 2 weeks ago. So I was like, out of it. My Instagram showed me out of date Dodgers content. I don't understand why, but not anymore. That was just a one-time thing.
Well, maybe it was just like taking a chance. Like sometimes the algorithm just needs to like throw you a curveball, see how you react.
Oh, curveball, baseball. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a baseball thing.
Yep.
Okay, so the straightest thing about me this week is RIP Couch Island. I got rid of a couch, but it wouldn't go out the door here.
Oh, no.
So the straightest thing about me this week was just get a sledgehammer, said I, and then went and got my sledgehammer. And then we beat the shit out of the couch until it got out of the door.
Oh my God. Did you really?
Really, really, really.
Wow. That's one strategy for getting a couch out a door.
It was just like, instead of yelling pivot 400 times like fucking Ross on Friends, we just like, we're taking it to the dump. We don't need to preserve it. We just needed to get out of the house. So
Wow.
let's fucking bust that shit up.
That's very straight of you.
Yeah. And then the gayest thing about me is because we're still in the process of moving and figuring things out, we're sleeping on a mattress on the floor, just like a top. So
yeah, good dick top.
I keep making the joke we're tops because we're sleeping on a mattress on the floor, and it's hilarious. We have a listener's Gayest and Straightest.
Yeah, we do. This one is from Elijah.
Hi, Mike and Kyle. My name is Elijah Schweikert. I go by Eli, or you could find me at Derpy Lee Force on Discord. My pronouns are he, him, and I identify as pansexual. I live in Midland, Michigan. I'm a first-time caller, but long-time listener. My gayest for today is that I hung out with my poly friends with benefits / partner, and we went out to the high school where he works as a choir director to try to find this stray cat that actually bit him, and he had a whole thing with that, and his car wasn't starting, so I helped him start his car, which didn't work. So I guess that was gay too, that it didn't work. And then I guess my straightest is that I'm getting ready for a Christian youth camp this weekend. So yeah, hopefully that goes well. I love your guys' work, and I'm looking forward to hearing future episodes.
Thanks, Eli.
Thanks, Eli. I couldn't hear it, but I assume it was great.
You don't have to say that. You could have just said thank you.
Thank you.
It involved trying to jumpstart a car and that not working.
Yeah.
And you're going to a Christian youth camp this weekend? I have questions, but don't need answers.
Yeah.
But that is pretty straight.
All right. Well, be sure to send in yours, everybody. It's 5855 Gayish. Or you can email us an attachment that works too.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you to everyone who's dead and in the ground.
And thank you to all the gay funeral directors.
Yeah. And thanks to you, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks to you, Mike.
Hey. It's my birthday. We didn't even say it even once.
Oh shit.
This week is my birthday, you fuckers.
I forgot to plan ahead on that.
It's fine.
Happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you. That's it.
I'm gonna move this to the front so it sounds like I remembered.
Okay, great.
Happy birthday. You're not gonna be in town. I don't care.
I'm gonna be in Asia.
Yeah. I also want to thank our super gappers. Thank you to Locomotive, Kaylee Adams, Kit Oliver, Kobe Gordon, Squaggle, Pip, Andrew Bugby, William Bryant, John Crowley, Yost Osel, Jonathan Montanius, Forrest Nail, Steve Douglas, Explosive Zania, Michael Covington, Just Jamie, Thomas B, Dusty Sands, A. Coleman, Chris Cagitorians, and Jerome York. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your money. That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Cagitorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See ya.
Bye. I lost a link. Let me find it. Hold on.
Okay. I Lost a Link is the new plot of the new Zelda.